In a time when moe, school life, and idols dominate the medium, one show has risen above the rest to restore taste to the industry. That show is, of course, One Punch Man, the savior of anime. Or at least, that's what some would have you believe. Yes, a show that at the time of this review is already ranked number 17 on ANN, 10 on MAL, and number 1 on IMDb, which includes all television series, anime or otherwise. A show that already has YouTube commenters saying such praises as "frecking awesome," would give 11 out of 10, and a true materpiece. A show that might have anime on the edge of breaking into the mainstream. To all of which I have to say, let's pump the brakes a bit. No, One Punch Man has not saved the industry. Not that it was ever in need of saving. No, it isn't perfect, and no, it's probably not going to make anime the next big thing in the West. Here's what it is, though. It is a unique, highly effective satire of the extremely popular superhero genre. It is one of the best animated shows of the year. High praise considering how many insanely well-animated series there've been. Finally, while it may not deserve all the praise it's gotten, One Punch Man is certainly deserving of the attention. I can already feel the hate mail coming, so let me make my stance quite clear. I loved One Punch Man. It was hilarious from start to finish and one of the more entertaining rides I've been on. The question then is simply, is it as great as everyone says, or is the hype a little overblown? With that, today, under the scope, I take a look at One Punch Man, the wildly successful show that seems to be all anyone can talk about nowadays. Myself included, of course. At this point, One Punch Man should really be a show that needs no introduction, but for those of you who have been living under a rock for 3 months, here you go. One Punch Man is about a caped baldy named Saitama saving the day from a seemingly endless swarm of supervillains with his crazy strength and trademark deadpan reactions. This unstoppable phenom has a problem, however. His ability to defeat anything with a single punch has left him devoid of any worthy adversaries. Where's the fun in beating up the bad guys if they don't stand a chance? It's a unique twist on the classic superhero tale. Where most superheroes obtain their powers through some radioactive sludge or enormous bank account, Saitama gets his strength from your typical daily workout routine. Most superhero stories see the villain best the hero at first before finally succumbing in the epic climactic showdown. Saitama, of course, lets them give their little speech about world domination yada 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 before blasting them into the stratosphere. Even with the villains who actually manage to last longer than half an episode, you feel as though it's only a matter of time before Saitama shows up and inevitably brings it to a screeching halt. It's a great satire of the superhero genre, as we're presented with a hero who's actually lonely because he has no villain to give him a challenge, making for plenty of hilarious moments between Saitama and his supposed competitors. Of course, this also presents a sort of catch-22. It's not a matter of will Saitama win or not, rather how long will it take. And yes, that's part of the joke, but you can only make the same joke so many times. Hell, the first episode alone does it on 5 different occasions. Just when things start to get stale, however, the second half of the show provides some much-needed depth and character introspection. On the surface, One Punch Man seems to be nothing more than entertainment fodder, and while it provides that in droves, there doesn't appear to be anything deeper. However, the show introduces a few intriguing thematic elements in the second half, particularly what it means to be a hero. A large portion of One Punch Man's strongest heroes are callous saviors, just in it for the money or the fame, seemingly raising the question, does saving people automatically make you a hero? Do ulterior motives matter? Even Saitama's motivation changes throughout the series. At the start, he's a hero for fun, doing it because it sure beats slogging through a 9-to-5 grinder, before later wanting recognition for his innumerable deeds. Eventually, however, he's fine sacrificing his own popularity and happiness if it means doing the right thing. A true act of heroism. But it's not just the major players either. Minor characters like Moomin Rider demonstrate the profound impact a person can have on the world, even if it means just saving one person. The courage to help is always heroic. It seemed to imply that being a hero isn't about why you do it or how much power you have. No matter how big or small the deed, you should always do the right thing simply because it's the right thing. That's not all the show gets into either. It raises some interesting questions about society's propensity to prop people up just so they can tear them down, and the general ungratefulness of humanity. Saitama saves the city from utter annihilation, and rather thank him for their lives, they rail him for what destruction he couldn't prevent. Does Saitama care though? Of course not. He's a real hero after all. One Punch Man is still a show devoid of any real thought-provoking depth, but that doesn't mean there isn't a message. None of it would be possible, of course, if it weren't for the characters though. For a story that's as connected to its characters as One Punch Man, I felt the need to combine the two categories for the purpose of this review. First off, there's the obvious one. Saitama is a deconstruction of the typical shonen protagonist. You know, the OP, do nothing wrong, loved by all vermin. Saitama one-punches that trope right out of here with his no-fucks-given attitude and look. There's never a dull moment with Saitama on screen. Hell, him being dull is when the show's at its most hilarious. Saitama's robot disciple, Genos, is another highlight. He initially wants to learn from Saitama so he can become stronger and eventually overpower him. However, he quickly realizes what it really means to be a hero and finds there's a gap between him and his master much larger than just their strength. It's not perfect, of course. Genos' character arc had the potential for interesting growth, but wasn't quite explored enough. A good chunk of the supporting cast is largely invisible for the majority of the series. We never even see the number 1 ranked hero. The villains are largely forgettable save 2, though that's kind of the point. We can't remember them because Saitama nuked them so fast. I would have liked to see more of Moomin Rider and some of the other small-time heroes, but with only 12 episodes to work with, they managed to squeeze as much in as they could. Still, Saitama is the show's driving force and honestly one of the funniest characters I've ever seen, making up for any of the cast's minor deficiencies in spades. The show's 2 best episodes are arguably the first and last. The premiere is the perfect introduction to the series and had me hooked from the onset, while the finale is just so hype. So hype. It's a nearly flawless episode every way you look at it, and the perfect way to send off the series, leaving plenty of room for a continuation. The question becomes, does One Punch Man need a sequel, or do we just want one? In other words, is the story incomplete? As usual, yes and no. It wrapped enough loose ends up to feel satisfactory, but still left a ton of questions unanswered. Beyond that, the supporting cast is in desperate need of more development, and the major theme could use a lot more exploration. Given Madhouse's reputation, I would put the chances of a second season at unlikely, but given the show's popularity, it'd certainly be an enormous money-making opportunity. That being said, One Punch Man's story is complete enough to satisfy, and the lack of a sequel doesn't take away from the show's entertainment value. One Punch Man's story is largely inconsequential as it's the characters that make it. There aren't enough superlatives to describe Saitama's badassery, but the rest of the cast shines as well at times, providing the show with much of its thematic depth. One Punch Man's animation is the best part about it, which is not a knock against the rest of the show. The animation's just that phenomenal. The action sequences are unbelievably fluid, and the attention to detail is mind-blowing. Just look at this one sequence from the first episode. Words cannot describe how amazing this is. The choreography is perfect. The camera movement is perfect. The drawings themselves are perfect. One Punch Man's fights are so memorable because they're so well animated, easily some of the best I've ever seen. The action's not all the animation gets right either. Saitama's deadpan reactions give the show its funniest moments, a perfect carryover from the manga. I've definitely seen better, more detailed art and backgrounds, but that still isn't to say they're not good. There's only so much gushing I can do, but One Punch Man has some of the best animation out there, particularly with its action sequences. The soundtrack is also fairly great, with a couple standouts that stuck in my head even after I finished the show. It's probably nothing I'll come back to, but it's always a good fit. Another highlight of the sound was Saitama's voice actor. Makoto Furukawa was a perfect fit for the role and really helped bring out Saitama's infectious personality. What really steals the show, though, is the opening. So much hype! I don't even know what to say. My brain's just telling me hype, 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 hype. In a year with a lot of great openings, this is definitely one of the best. You can't deny One Punch Man nails the technical aspects with a solid soundtrack and superb animation, especially in the fight scenes. Honestly, you'll be hard-pressed to find better. So, is One Punch Man deserving of all the praise it's gotten? Well, yes and no. I do think it deserves some of the acclaim, just not to the insanely high levels it's gotten. The more interesting question to me is why has it gotten so much praise? A large part of it is thanks to its widespread appeal. This isn't a show that only attracts casual anime fans or seasoned vets. As an easily accessible, comedy-driven action series, it doesn't take any prior experience with anime to enjoy it. As such, I think it'd make a great gateway anime for someone who's never seen anything. At the very least, it's a hell of a lot better than some other recent series that have been dubbed gateway shows. There's no doubt One Punch Man has been one of the most popular series to come out of the last several years, to the point it's become relatively mainstream here in the West. No, it isn't the 10th best anime of all time, and certainly not the #1 television series of all time. That's just ridiculous. However, it is a thoroughly entertaining ride I'd love to see get a second season, and that's all you should expect out of it going in. Don't let the hype bloat your expectations, you'll only leave disappointed. One Punch Man is a show for entertainment purposes first and foremost, and should be treated as such. I'm not saying that everyone will enjoy it, such a show doesn't exist. Rather, as long as you don't go looking for the greatest anime of all time, chances are you'll find a kick-ass action satire sure to provide some damn good fun. So with that, I award One Punch Man an approval rating of watch, and a definite recommendation to do so, as well as an overall score of 4 deadpan Saitama faces out of 5. Thankfully, the overwhelming levels of hype weren't enough to taint my view of the show, and I enjoyed the absolute hell out of it. The characters are hilarious, the action sequences are jaw-dropping, and the final episode is appropriately hype. If you haven't watched it already, what are you waiting for? Now this is a bit of a difficult recommendation as there's not much like it, but if you're looking for something similar to One Punch Man, check out Gintama for another satire with a similar MC, only Gintama parodies anime in general. Also watch, and I'm gonna sound really stupid when I say this, The Incredibles. Yes, the Pixar movie. Hey, I didn't say these recommendations had to be anime, and they're actually very similar. Plus, The Incredibles is great, so you should watch it anyway. And that'll do it for me. If you're feeling particularly generous and want to help me make better content, please consider checking out my Patreon page. Any help would mean a whole lot to this broke college student. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and feel free to follow me on Twitter at UTS Reviews. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.